Welcome to Wisdom Trek with Gramps. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, and we are on day 2507 of our trek. The purpose of Wisdom Trek is to create a legacy of wisdom, to seek out discernment and insights, and to boldly grow where few have chosen to grow before. In today's Wisdom Nugget, we'll be wrapping up our exploration of Psalm 34 by diving into verses 15 through 22. This final section of the Psalm reveals God's compassionate nature and His faithfulness to those who are brokenhearted, facing hardship, and enduring injustice. David reminds us that God is both near to us in our pain and powerful enough to deliver us from it. These verses offer us both comfort and hope, assuring us that God's watchful eye is on His people and that He responds to their cries for help. Let us begin by reading Psalm 34, verses 15 through 22 from the New Living Translation, and then we'll unpack it together. The eyes of the Lord watch over those who do right. His ears are open to their cries for help. But the Lord turns His face against those who do evil. He will erase their memories from earth. The Lord hears His people when they call Him for help. He rescues them from all of their trouble. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed. The righteous person faces many troubles, but the Lord comes to rescue each time. For the Lord protects the bones of the righteous, and not one of them is broken. Calamity will surely destroy the wicked, and those who hate the righteous will be punished. But the Lord will redeem those who serve Him. No one who takes refuge in Him will be condemned. David begins this section with verse 15 and a beautiful reminder of God's attentive care. The eyes of the Lord watch over those who do right. His ears are open to their cries for help. Here David paints a picture of a watchful and responsive God. God isn't distant or disengaged. He is fully aware of His people and actively listens to their cries. This image of God's eyes watching over the righteous emphasizes His protective presence. He sees the paths that we walk and challenges we face, and the moments when we feel overwhelmed. He is with us, watching over us with His love and care. The phrase, His ears are open to their cries for help, assures us that God sees and hears. In our moments of distress, our cries do not fall on deaf ears. God listens with compassion and readiness to respond. This is a powerful reminder that we don't have to face life's hardships alone. We have a loving Father who hears and cares. Verse 16, however, presents a contrast. But the Lord turns His face against those who do evil. He will erase their memory from earth. This may seem like a harsh statement, but it reflects God's commitment to justice. God's face is turned away from evil, meaning that He doesn't align Himself with those who act unjustly or harm others. His justice ensures that wrongdoing will ultimately be brought into account. Those who persist in wickedness will not stand in God's presence, and their legacy will fade. These verses reveal both God's mercy toward the righteous and His commitment to justice. They remind us that God is attentive to our cries, but He also stands against evil, ensuring us that wrongdoing will not have the final say. In verse 17, David reassures us further. The Lord hears His people when they call for Him for help. He rescues them from all their troubles. This verse reinforces the idea that God listens and responds. He is not an indifferent observer. He actively intervenes to rescue His people. When we call out to Him in our times of need, He is faithful to respond, bringing us deliverance and peace. Verse 18 is one of the most comforting verses of the Scripture. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed. David tells us that God draws especially near to those who are hurting, brokenhearted, and struggling under the weight of sorrow. God's closeness is not just a vague presence, it's an intimate companionship. When our hearts feel shattered, He is right there with us, offering us comfort, strength, and healing. This verse speaks to those times when life feels overwhelming, when we're grieving or feeling lost. God's presence with the brokenhearted reminds us that He isn't just near us in our joy, but especially close in our sorrow. God doesn't expect us to carry the weight when we feel crushed. He is there, lifting us up and bringing us through the pain. Together, these verses show us a compassionate God who is close to those in distress and who hears every cry. Even in our lowest moments, we can turn to Him, knowing that He is near and His heart is tender toward us. David continues in verse 19, The righteous person may face many troubles, but the Lord comes to rescue them each time. This verse is important because it acknowledges a reality we all face. Even those who seek to live righteously are not exempt from troubles. Sometimes we may wonder why difficulties arise when we are trying to live in alignment with God's will. David answers this here, affirming that our troubles are part of life, even for the righteous. But notice the promise in the second half of the verse. The Lord comes to rescue each time. This doesn't mean that we won't encounter hardship, but it assures us that God will always be there and bring us through it. Every challenge we face is an opportunity to experience God's deliverance and to witness His strength in our weakness. In verse 20, David says, "For the Lord protects the bones of the righteous, not one of them will be broken." This verse is often understood as a poetic way of saying that God's protection is thorough and complete. He watches over every part of us, ensuring that we are not ultimately destroyed even in our troubles. While life may bring hardship, God's protection surrounds those who trust Him. These verses remind us that God doesn't promise a life free of difficulty, but He does promise His presence, protection, and rescue. In every trial, He is faithful to come alongside us, to strengthen us, and to lead us to safety. In verse 21, David contrasts the future of the wicked with those of the righteous. Calamity will surely destroy the wicked, and those who hate the righteous will be punished. David assures us that God's justice will ultimately prevail. While it may seem at times that injustice goes unchecked, David reminds us that there is a day of reckoning for those who do evil. Calamity will not go unanswered, and those who harm others will face the consequences of their actions. This verse speaks to us of God's commitment to righting wrongs and upholding justice. Finally, in verse 22, wraps up the psalm with a beautiful promise of redemption. "But the Lord will redeem those who serve Him. No one who takes refuge in Him will be condemned." This is a powerful declaration of God's grace and mercy. To redeem means to rescue, to bring back, to save from harm. David assures us that God will redeem those who choose to serve Him, those who make Him their refuge. David's words also remind us that no matter of our past mistakes, we are forgiven and not condemned when we turn to God and take refuge in Him. God's grace exceeds our failures, and His mercy covers us. Those who trust in Him are safe from judgment and held secure by His love. These final verses bring Psalm 34 to a hopeful conclusion, reassuring us of God's justice, mercy, and commitment to those seeking Him. God is our protector and redeemer, the one who delivers us from troubles and surrounds us with His love. Psalm 34 verses 15 through 22 gives us a vivid picture of God's compassion, His justice, and His unwavering commitment to those who turn to Him. David's words remind us that we serve a God who watches over us, listens to us, and is near to us in every situation. Whether we are facing hardship, heartbreak, or the consequences of injustice, we can take comfort in knowing that God is with us, fighting for us, and ready to redeem us. As we close our journey through Psalm 34, may we remember that God's love is steadfast. He hears our cries, He draws near to our pain, and He redeems us with His unfailing mercy. No matter what we face, we can place our trust in Him, knowing that He is our refuge and strength. Thank you for joining me today for our Wisdom Trek. Until the next time, may God's wisdom guide your step, and may His love fill your heart with peace. Now, if you found this podcast insightful, please subscribe and leave us a review. Then encourage your friends and family to join us, and then come along with us tomorrow for another day of Wisdom Trek, creating a legacy. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your guide, your mentor, and most importantly, I am your friend as I serve you through the Wisdom Trek podcast and journal. And as we take this trek of life together, let us always live abundantly, love unconditionally, listen intentionally, learn continuously, lend to others generously, lead with integrity, and leave a living legacy each day. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, reminding you to keep moving forward, enjoy your journey, and create a great day every day. See you next time for more daily wisdom.